On this episode of Entertaining LA, we will be paying a tribute to the legendary DJ, Art Laboe. Next on Entertaining LA. Hello everyone, this is Entertaining LA, where we check out events, concerts, festivities across Southern California, as well as entertainment news. I say thank you so much for watching and tuning in. So, we're going to be moving on to a tribute to the late, great Art Laboe. Now, for those of you that don't know, Art Laboe was an icon, a legend. He was a DJ that broke a lot of barriers. I'm talking about introducing the world to rock and roll, R&B, soul, funk music. I mean, he didn't care. He loved that type of genre when he first got started around the 1950s into his early years in the 60s. And he kept it going. He kept the golden oldies going. I remember that me and my dad, my sister, we used to drive home and we listened to him on the radio. He would talk about the artists, he would talk about the music, and he would give people a taste of the golden oldies. Now, I know what y'all think. It's old school. It's for old people. Let me tell you something. When it comes to music, where do you think all this music comes from into modern day music? I mean, it is fused together. It's fused from the late 1940s all the way to the 1970s. And Art Laboe was one of the DJs that broke barriers. He introduced us to some of today's icons that are today. I'm talking about the late, great Little Richard, the late, great Elvis Presley, Chuck Berry. He also did a lot of some of the new artists that are still icons to this very day. So I like to give you a glimpse and a tribute to the late, great Art Laboe. Art Laboe was born in Murray, Utah on August 7, 1925. His love of music occurred during his early years when AM radio was hitting the airwaves. He would listen to the local station and even receive a radio from his sister at the age of 8 years old. His parents divorced when he was 13 years old and was sent to live with his sister in South Central Los Angeles. After graduating from George Washington High School in South Los Angeles, Laboe entered the Navy. By the time he returned to Los Angeles in the 1950s, rock and roll was beginning to make its fierce impact.
I walk in there and go up the 10th floor, and there's nobody there. It's real quiet. I asked the secretary if I could see the manager, and she said, "Yeah, I'll just go on down the hall and second door and walk in." So I walk in, and there's this big hulk of a guy sitting at the desk, and he's busy with his papers, and he has his glasses on. Kind of looks over his glasses and says, "Who the hell are you? How'd you get in here? And what do you want?" and I'm just a kid, and I'm all of a sudden, I said, "Well, I thought, maybe I could, get a job, I had this little squeaky voice, and he says, "No," he says, "I don't know how you got in here." He says, "We don't have anything for you. You don't have the voice for it. You're too young." And he says, "I don't have anything for you. I'm sorry." He says, But and I'm real busy." So I said, "Oh, okay, well, sorry to bother you, sir." And I turned around and was disappointed, of course. And he was pretty rough with me. And I get almost to the door, and he says, "And hey, you," he says, "by the way, you have to have a FCC license to, be on the radio with a station like ours. We use combination people." And he says, "So if you want to get work in this business, you better get a license." So I turned around, I had them in my pocket, and I put the three of them on his desk, and I said, "You mean one of these?" He looked at that first-class radio telephone, and he said, "You're hired." And I said, "Well, I thought you have it." He says, "No, you're hired." He got up out of his desk, came over, put his arm around me, and he says, "Do you know why you're hired?" And I said, "No." He says, "That piece of paper," he says, "all my engineers have been drafted, and I'm operating illegally. I have to have a first-class radio telephone on the wall." And he says, "That's why you're hired." He said,
The station also started to do what was called his special motive, dedications. According to the Press Enterprise, Leboe said, "Late at night, before KSUN AM signed off at midnight, I had free reign to spin records by big bands and jazz singers, and eventually started asking listeners to call in if they wanted to hear a particular song. Leboe's popularity continued to climb as he worked at the radio station. The dedications were coming in from callers living in Oxnard, Boyle Heights, Riverside, and from as far as Phoenix, Albuquerque, and Nevada. Leboe was the first DJ to do live sessions at public locations. His first was Schooner's Drive-In. Due to massive turnouts and trouble with the Los Angeles Ordinance, Leboe has moved the showcase to El Monte. He started the dance shows at the El Monte Legion Stadium, where over 1,000 fans travel to listen and dance to the latest music. Music artists will also stop by to be interviewed and perform on Leboe's showcase. Artists include Little Richard, Elvis Presley, Jerry Lee Lewis, Chuck Berry, the Nelson Brothers, Rick Nelson, just to name a few. With live radio show going, he had the audience and a list of requests. He began to turn that concept into an album titled Oldies But Goodies, a term he trademarked and was released by Art's company, Original Sound Record Company, Inc. Throughout his career, he released numerous albums, interviewed music artists, and showcased concerts dedicated to the oldies. Art Laboe, you will be missed. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the late, great Art Laboe. Like I said, he introduced the world to rock and roll, R&B, funk music. He was one of the many that did introduce the world to those genres of music, as well as different artists, as you see them as icons today, as well as opening up doors for other artists to come. And he kept the golden oldies alive till his passing. Art Laboe, may you rest in peace. I'd like to say thank you so much for watching. Be sure to check me out on my website, monicavalentine.net, so you can check out what's going on in Southern California. And be sure to follow me on my social media pages so you can get a glimpse of what I'm doing around town, and be sure to follow so that way you know and be able to be a part of the activities as well. So I'd like to say thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Have a good one.